Hi, my name is Robert Jamieson and this video presentation is about the God Gametes Theory. But before we start, a little background. I first encountered this concept when in the Philippines in 1993, and I'm not sure when or where the theory first originated or what sparked my interest. Was it that argument I had with a friend and the hurtful and very much regretted comments I made about her religion? Or maybe it was that Filipino faith healer, come mystic, that got me hooked, and his claim that many Filipinos still connect with ancient, pre-Spanish spiritual customs and beliefs. I don't know what it was that triggered my interest. What I do know is that the theory has overtaken my life. And after researching it for more than 2 decades and writing a number of books on the subject, I firmly believe the God Gametes Theory offers profound insights into our origins and our meaning and purpose in life. So what are gametes? Gametes are reproductive cells, and the God Gametes Theory claims the human consciousness, our souls, are male reproductive cells of a creator being. This God Gametes concept holds that a long time ago, a parent species seeded life on Earth and has driven the evolution of more and more complexity until one species, our human species, had a brain large enough to host their male consciousness gametes. Did I hear that right, I hear you ask? Are we saying our human consciousness is the male reproductive cell of a created parent species? Well, the answer is yes. And while that might seem a fanciful claim, it should be noted that ancient spiritual traditions from around the world have envisaged human life, our souls, as the endowment of a creator God. And the following presentation points to many ancient customs and beliefs that have predicted what we now understand is the structure and function of our human reproductive system. Let's say there's 2 lines of supporting evidence for the God Gametes Theory. First, the belief in gods that reproduce. Next, there's overwhelming evidence that life on Earth was seeded and has evolved as part of a reproductive system of a creator being. So are we one of these? Well, we could say that these guys are like us, that they have a tail instead of arms and legs, and they are part of our reproductive system, as we are part of our parent species' reproductive system. Maybe this could be better understood if we take a closer look at our own male reproductive cells. Male gametes have a variety of physical shapes, and when inseminated into the female body, they perform different functions. They're seek and destroy, kamikaze, egg getters, blockers, and many other types. They have gender. They have sperm wars. Does all that sound familiar? There are 300 to 600 million gametes in the average male ejaculate, but only a few hundred will ever get anywhere near the female egg. Amazingly, even when in close proximity to the female egg and having survived the odds of 1,000,000 to 1 against, male sperm cells show little interest in their target. They appear to stand back and wait. Eventually, one will come forward, penetrate the wall of the female egg, and claim the prize of fertilisation. Now, many people know that the God Gametes Theory talks about a reproductive system that is not physical, and that is correct. Our theory does not claim that life on Earth resulted from some form of physical connection with the parent species. And we do not believe our creator being travelled here in a spaceship from a neighbouring star constellation. The God Gametes Theory claims a parent species seeded life on Earth via signal. Nature abounds with life forms that utilise signals. It's well known that many species use signals when hunting for prey, and few would deny that migratory birds and fish that fly or swim to opposite ends of the world to breed are using signals to navigate. There's also a single-cell organism called dictyostelium that makes its living digesting microbes it finds on the forest floor. when it comes time to reproduce, all these free living cells begin moving towards a single point. They then form a multicellular slug-like creature. Next, this single-bodied organism sends up a tower several millimetres high. A spherical head is then formed on top of the tower. The walls eventually break open, releasing spores to the wind, where they colonise a new area on the forest floor. Our human infants are born with a very complex brain, but it's several years before they acquire a consciousness. We claim that during the first few years of life, the brains of infants are seeded with the male reproductive cells of our parent species. That our physical bodies are merely hosting their male gametes. In the same way, our own human gametes carry forward from generation to generation the genetic endowment of our own species. So let's again look at our own male gametes. Every male sperm cell has a single copy of the human genome. These genetic instructions are written out in a strange four-letter code made up of A. adenine, C. cytosine, G. guanine and T. thymine. Each copy of the human genome has 3.164 billion of these nitrogen bases. Let's imagine we typed out the whole human genome using only the characters A, C, G, T. With no spaces or punctuation, typing on A4 paper, 1-inch margin, Times New Roman, font 12, it would result in 4,500 characters per page. 1,000 pages, or 2 reams, would therefore be 4.5 million characters of A, C, G, T, A, C, G, etc. So what about 20 reams? These boxes are empty, of course, but they leave the manufacturer with 5 reams per box, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. And I've taped them together for the purpose of this demonstration. Okay, that's 1 metre. Now, if 2 reams have 4.5 million characters, 20 reams will have 45 million characters, and stacked it forms a tower of paper 1 metre high. 45 million characters, of course, is a lot, but the human genome is 3.164 billion nucleotides. So we need to divide 3,164 million divided by 45 million goes 70 times. So multiply 1 metre 70 times, we have a tower of paper 70 metres high, the height of a 23-storey building. Now that is absolutely amazing. All that information is contained within the nucleus of 1 sperm cell. That's so small you cannot see it. But wait, what is even more amazing is that males manufacture gametes at the rate of 1,000 per second. So males produce 1,000 70-metre high stacks of paper with every heartbeat. That's a tower of paper 70 metres high with a floor area 10 metres by 6 metres, or a 23-storey office tower every second. So let's recap. 1 page of A4 paper, 4,500 characters. 2 reams, 4.5 million. 20 reams, 45 million characters. A stack of paper 1 metre high. The complete human genome, a tower of paper 70 metres high. And what males produce in 1 second, a tower of paper 70 metres high, covering a floor area 6 metres by 10 metres. The size of a 23-storey office tower. That is incredible. Consider the rate of manufacture, the accuracy with which the genetic code is produced. Then, all that information must be packaged into the nucleus of a cell so tiny it's invisible to the human eye. We must also ask, why all that complexity when single-cell organisms reproduce merely by dividing 1 into 2? To answer that question, we need to discuss a fundamental God Gametes claim. The God Gametes theory claims the 1,000 reproductive cells a male produces every second that are expelled from his body is data. This is data that has been needed and is still needed to evolve our species. Let's say the human body, or what biologists call the soma, is what manufactures new bodies and does the repairs and maintenance on old ones. We claim, however, it is gametes that do the research and development. They are part of the germline, and it's their job to check out how we're going. Bit of a problem with the teeth. Need to come up with a better enamel to prevent all that tooth decay. Still a problem with the lower back. Not sure that walking upright was such a good idea. So, is our hypothesis correct? And what are the implications? Well, all that data males produce in their gametes, 3.164 trillion bits every second, must have a purpose. And that leads us to another God Gametes claim. The God Gametes theory suggests if gametes are carrying all that information, then we need to think of it as data. And if it is data during research and development, then it must be retrieved. Thus we hold, when they die, the life entities of maternal and paternal gametes will match up and get back into the germline of the bodies that produced them. Yes, that is right. An astonishing claim, but we hold it is true. Male gametes are maternal and paternal. Once disseminated into the female body, they live for a few days, and of course, all gametes will die. However, the God Gametes theory claims only the physical bodies of male gametes die. Their life entity has the potential to get back into our germline and to assist in the evolution and adaptation of future generations of our species. Many will say this is a ridiculous claim. How can cells that divide get back together again? That's like running time backwards or unringing a bell. Well, it was once thought the reversal of cell division was impossible, but in the year 2006, Dr. Gary Gorbsky from the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation found the process of cell division could be reversed. Here we see a cell in the latest stage of cell division, cytokinesis. The double helix has duplicated, and the single cell has separated into two distinct cells. Amazingly, Gorbsky's team was able to trigger the reversal of cell division and the restoration of divided cells to their original form. The God Gametes theory claims the life entity of maternal and paternal gametes will, after their physical bodies die, reunite and return to the germline of our species. So let's run over that again. The physical bodies of male gametes will die, but their life entities get back into our germline as single cells with single nuclei and modified copies of the DNA better able to evolve and adapt to our planet's ever-changing environment. Well, if the life entities of our gametes can get back into our species genome, then what about us? If our souls are the male gametes of a parent species, then what happens when our physical bodies die? This brings us to what is by far the most important God Gametes claim. Yes, our theory contends human souls have the potential to match up after death and return to the genome of our parent species. We have a single copy of their consciousness DNA, and our souls, as with our physical bodies, are either maternal or paternal. And, like our own gametes, we're doing research and development. Our job is to evolve and to develop the qualities of character that are best suited to future generations of parent species. We believe the powerful motivators of love and of sex are likely ongoing means of data retrieval, and every individual human soul has a potential, after death, to match up with the soul of a loved one and be redeemed by the germline of our parent species. Next, we look at a number of similarities between our human gametes and what we claim are the parent species God gametes, us. Let's say there are 6 parallels. Both human gametes and humans, 1, come in big numbers, 2, carry a lot of information, 3, are gender-based, 4, know what to do, 5, are separated by a barrier, 6, are cyclical. And there's a 7th point with a question mark, which we'll discuss later in the presentation. So the first parallel, come in big numbers. Humans and human gametes both come in big numbers. We earlier explained how gametes come in big numbers. So do humans. There's 7 billion of us. And like our own human gametes, we tend to swarm. Second parallel, carry a lot of information. Humans and male reproductive cells both carry a lot of information. Every sperm cell carries a complete copy of the human genome. People also like to collect data. Apart from the incredible information storage capacity we have in our brain, we also accumulate information. Information that God Gametes Theory claims our parent species needs to evolve their species. We're good at learning how things work. We also try to understand our people and how we can live together peacefully on a finite planet Earth. Making decisions about what is right and what is wrong is where we have difficulty. We must therefore ask, are our parent species merely evolving their bodies, or are they also selecting for morality and strength of character? We claim the parent species are evolving their consciousness and will select for morality and strength of character. The third parallel, are gender-based. Both humans and human male gametes have gender. Gametes have either X or Y chromosomes. Our species is either male or female, and we pair bond. And that brings us to the most significant of all God Gametes claims. Remember our earlier claim that when our gametes die, the life entities of maternal and paternal sperm cells match up, and the information they carry gets back into our human germline. We claim there's a revolving door of germline DNA that helps our species evolve and adapt to a changing environment. Well, we say the same thing about our souls. The God Gametes Theory claims when our bodies die, the information and human qualities we have developed during our lifetime has the potential to get back into the germline of our parent species. We hold the souls of males and females who have lived a good life and have developed good characters will, after death, come together and be redeemed by the germline of our Creator beings. Fourth parallel, know what to do. Both humans and our male gametes are part of a reproductive system, and they need to know what to do. As mentioned earlier, our reproductive cells adopt different roles, similar roles to humans. Once inseminated into the body of the female, they go about finding their way through her tortuous reproductive tract. They seem to know instinctively that they're part of a reproductive system. They seem to know how it works and what role they must play. So, is there any evidence that ancient civilizations saw life on Earth and our species as part of the reproductive system of a Creator being? Well, yes, there is. The Egyptian gods Isis and Osiris were male and female, and they reproduced. There are Hindu gods and goddesses. And there is a biblical narrative in Genesis that claim we all descended from Adam and Eve. It's not surprising that our ancients envisioned their gods as having gender and reproducing as we do. Gods are commonly seen as our mother or father in heaven, and there are countless spiritual traditions that express our origins in this way. More interesting, however, is the fact that ancient traditions seem to have predicted much of the molecular function of our human reproductive system. It was only in 1953 that James Watson and Francis Crick discovered the structure of DNA. Yet there are thousands of ancient images that depict the twisted ladder we see in the double helix. For example, the ancient catechist depicts two entwined serpents that are male and female. This image has long been associated with alchemy and the medical profession. In Sumerian mythology, Ningishita appears as one of the guardians of Anu's celestial palace. And again, the similarity to the double helix is unmistakable. Images of entwined serpents are ubiquitous in ancient theology. Here again we see Isis and Osiris, both taking the shape of a serpent. The Egyptian bark taking the form of a double-headed serpent. Demeter, the Greek goddess of grain. Aztec, double-headed serpent. This twisted ladder imagery is so close to the molecular structure of DNA and is so common in ancient mythology that it's impossible to believe it is mere coincidence. Even more interesting is the fact that numerous ancient gods were seen as hermaphrodites. Like germline cells that have paternal and paternal copies of DNA and divide into two cells with either X or Y chromosomes, many gods are depicted with male down one side and female down the other. Adharashvara is a Hindu god that is female on one side and male on the other. This deity is said to represent the synthesis of masculine and feminine energies of the universe. Shiva and Shakti is another androgynous god. Shiva represents consciousness and masculinity, while Shakti, the divine, feminine, creative power. In Greek mythology, Hermaphroditus was a handsome boy who was transformed into half male and half female. The Greek god Dionysus, god of wine and the harvest, was often depicted naked, sensuous, and half male, half female. In Chinese mythology, not only does yin depict female and yang male, but the yin-yang symbol gives near-perfect representation to maternal and paternal reproductive cells, showing the heads, the tails, and even the nuclei of two entwined germline cells. In the English translation of the book of Genesis, God is said to have taken Eve from Adam's rib. Some biblical scholars, however, claim that this should read, God took Eve from the side of Adam. And this would mean that, in his original form, Adam was a dual-sex deity, with male down one side and female down the other. Thus we claim there are dual-sex deities or androgynous gods from around the world that reference to germline cell division, or the biological process of meiosis. During the reproductive process of meiosis, germline cells divide, both new cells having maternal and paternal copies of DNA. The new cells, however, divide again. This time there are 4 new daughter cells, each with only a single copy of maternal or paternal DNA. The God Gametes Theory holds that our ancients were, like us, reproductive cells of a parent species, and like us, they only had a single consciousness copy of their creator being's DNA. Let's say our ancients depicted their gods as their creator beings and existing in a high dimension of space and time. Or to express that in modern biological terms, they saw their gods as having both copies of their species' consciousness genomes and able to comprehend all that exists. Number 5. Separated by a barrier. So what does being separated by a barrier mean? As mentioned earlier, biologists refer to the soma and the germline. They also refer to a Weissman barrier. The soma is our physical body that lives and dies. The germline is our genetic endowment that is passed from parents to offspring. Scientists claim there is an impenetrable barrier between the germline and the soma. This barrier is called the Weissman barrier. A blacksmith, for example, might have blue eyes and curly hair, and working as a blacksmith, he'll also have calluses on his hands. His children will likely inherit his curly hair and blue eyes, but not the calluses. This is because his hair and his eye colour are coded for by his genotype, but the calluses on his hands are part of his phenotype. The point is this: gametes cannot connect with the soma. They only have a single copy of the genome and do not code for building body parts. It's essential that the germline has no direct contact with the soma. If the germline could see our bodies, they would likely code for offspring that are exact copies and not design new and novel ways to evolve and to adapt our species to an ever-changing environment. So what about humans? If we're part of the germline of a parent species, is there a similar barrier between us and our created beings? Well, yes, there is. As God Gametes, we can only see and measure 4% of what exists. Scientists tell us 23% of the universe is dark matter and 73% dark energy. They say dark matter is not matter existing out there beyond some distant galaxy that's too far away to see. It's all around us. Is it possible then that the parent species exist in dark matter and dark energy? That they are on the other side of a cosmic Weissman barrier? And we cannot see our parent species for the same reason our own sperm cells cannot see our human bodies? Modern biological science has found, amazingly, that there's a blood-testis barrier. Blood, it seems, does not cross the Weissman barrier. Even more interesting is that there's also a blood-brain barrier. Thus we claim blood does not flow into our brains because it hosts a God gamete, a reproductive cell of our parent species. Maybe a good way to look at this is to say, to our consciousness, the 96% of the universe we cannot see is made up of dark matter and dark energy. And to our own gametes, this, our physical body, is dark matter and dark energy. It makes sense when you consider that cells manufactured by the germline only have a single copy of our genome. But cells manufactured by the soma have 2 copies and code for making all body parts. Our human consciousness is a God gamete and only has a single copy of the parent species' consciousness genome, thus explaining why we can only see and measure 4% of the universe. And we claim our ancients also perceived the existence of a barrier. Not only was the separation of the male Adam from the female Eve symbolic of the biological process of meiosis, they were also expelled from the Garden of Eden. It is not difficult to relate the Garden of Eden to the endless variety of genetic forms that are coded for by normal body cells. Normal body cells with 2 copies of DNA have a good life. They are nourished by a circulating blood system and protected from infection by our immune system. Male gametes, however, like Adam and Eve, are induced by lust and are ejected from the male body, where their lives become much more difficult. Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden. The fact that they were divided into male and female, they were separated from the Creator and the beauty and variety of life in the Garden of Eden, and they needed to work hard to survive and reproduce, gives another near-perfect analogy with the biological process of meiosis. Another concept that relates to a barrier is a story in Genesis about the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel relates to the fall, and religious traditions from around the world talk about people falling from towers, cosmic mountains, pillars, or merely falling from a perfect state into a lesser being. The underlying philosophy of the fall is that we were created by a God who is a perfect being, or the androgynous whole. God is said to have created people, but was concerned that they might become too powerful. So instead of making them perfect or whole, he divided them into male and female, or into different countries, or cause them to speak different languages so as to confuse them. The problem with humans having the knowledge relates to us being the reproductive cells of our Creator being. We cannot have the same knowledge as the beings that created us, for we need to seek new and novel ways to evolve this species. Germline cells can be described as a perfect being, for they carry a species genetic code from generation to generation. They divide to create gametes that fall or become simple life forms that are unable to code for building body parts or to comprehend their creator. The concept of a fall is consistent with the division of germline cells into gametes. Whole cells with 2 copies of the human genome are divided into gametes with a single copy. If our consciousness is a gamete of a male member of a parent species, then it must be able to reunite with another and to return to that perfect and undivided state of our Creator being. Number 6, are cyclical. So what in this context do we mean by cyclical? Well, of course, all life forms, including humans and our male gametes, are cyclical. The life of male gametes, however, tends to come and go. Millions are inseminated into the female reproductive tract. They live for a few days and then die. And sexual activity for both males and females is governed by cycles. So how does that relate to the life of humans, you might ask? We don't get manufactured by the millions, live for a few days and all die. We might consider, however, if our parent species live in a different dimension of space and time and in a different gravitational field, then a few days to them might be the equivalent of a few thousand years to us. And the linear evolution of our species, as taught by mainstream historians, is almost certainly wrong. The Out of Africa theory claims all humans from all places around the world descended from a single group of modern humans that evolved in Africa some 200,000 years ago. But hang on, there were pre-humans scattered throughout Europe and Asia prior to the evolution of the first Homo sapiens. Homo erectus was found in Africa, Russia, China and in Indonesia. Neanderthal man was in southern, central, northern Africa, Middle East, Europe and Indonesia. Are we meant to believe that all these pre-humans died out and all modern humans evolved from one group of Africans? And how did this small group of people get to so many remote places? We're told they walked from Africa all the way through Europe, Asia, crossed the Bering Strait during an ice age and into North America, and gradually migrated to Central and South America. But where were the oldest human remains found in the Americas? Well, if they journeyed via the Bering Strait, we would expect the first arrivals would have settled here and taken many thousands of years to migrate south. Well, no. The oldest human remains found in the Americas have been found here in Monteverde, southern Chile. We're also expected to believe that the descendants of the same group of Africans travelled east through Southeast Asia, built canoes, crossed 150 kilometres of water and made it all the way to Central Australia 50,000 years ago, leaving no trace of that remarkable journey along the way. The various Out of Africa theories are absolute nonsense. They cannot explain how our early ancestors migrated to so many remote places, why all the pre-humans died out, or why there's only one species of modern humans. The mainstream historical paradigm also fails to explain the numerous technologically advanced civilizations who lived on Earth and who built many mysterious ancient buildings and then appear to have disappeared. This is the unfinished obelisk found in the granite quarries at Aswan, Egypt. Its length is 42 metres or 137 feet and is estimated to weigh 1,200 tonnes. Mainstream historians claim it was quarried 3,500 years ago. That's pre-Iron Age and before the invention of the wheel. It cracked when being quarried, and that's presumably why the project was abandoned. As you can see here, there are tool marks left on the side and the top of the obelisk. These are machining marks that could not have been made by the copper or bronze tools available at the time. The unfinished obelisk is attached to the bedrock, but here again we can see regular machining cuts made in the solid granite. Even if the ancient Egyptians were able to cut the obelisk free, how did they intend to lift it out of the quarry? It is only in the last few decades that we've had cranes capable of lifting 1,000 tonne. Here we see ancient boreholes found on the Giza Plateau, Egypt. Christopher Dunn, an engineer with an extensive background in machining and aerospace manufacturing, and author of a number of books on ancient Egyptian technologies, claims there is evidence of machining on the ancient Giza Plateau that cannot be matched by 21st century diamond bit cutting tools. Saw marks found at Giza, Egypt. It's plainly obvious that these machining marks were not made by copper or bronze tools, and that the equivalent of modern day technology was used. There are 3 megalithic stones found at the Temple of Jupiter, Baalbek, Lebanon. These stones each weigh 800 tonne. Some claim they were put in place by the Romans, but this is unlikely to be true. 300 tonne was the maximum weight Roman engineers were capable of moving, and nowhere else did the Romans move stones of this size. There are even larger stones at Baalbek. Stone of the pregnant woman weighs over 1,000 tonne. And the 1,200 tonne unnamed larger stone remains in the quarry where it was carved. These are some of the ancient ruins at Pumapuca, Bolivia. Note the perfectly straight edges. Also at Pumapuca, mainstream archaeologists have no explanation for these stones or how they were carved with such precision. Pumapuca again. Perfectly flat surface, straight grooves, round holes. This workmanship was not possible with the stone cutting tools that mainstream historians claim were available at the time they were carved. There are many underwater cities around the world. This site was found in several metres of water near Yonaguni, Jima, an island off the south coast of Japan. Yonaguni again. It's sometimes suggested that underwater cities were constructed during the last ice age, when sea levels were lower. We do not know, however, how or why they were built, or where the technologically advanced civilizations that built them have gone. So how does this relate to our claim that both the lives of humans and male gametes are cyclical? Well, the claim that our species slowly evolved in a linear way from ape to modern man is plainly wrong. There have been technologically advanced civilizations that have come and gone. We do not know why these early civilizations did not last. We know, however, that our own male reproductive cells have a short life cycle. They are manufactured in great numbers and soon deplete the resources they need to sustain their lives. And given our human population is several times more than our planet can sustain and is continuing to increase in number, it would seem our species is soon to enter the terminal phase of our cycle. So we've now looked at 6 parallels between reproductive cells and humans. Remember, however, we earlier suggested there may be a 7th? Well, here we note that these little fellas get it really tough. If you look at the job they're expected to do, then you would surely conclude that none could possibly succeed. Imagine, those tiny little cells have to carry a copy of the human genome from the lower vagina, through the cervix, the uterus, and into the oviduct, and then find and penetrate the female egg, something we might think would be completely impossible. Yet it would seem the female body is intent on making their job even more difficult. For example, many sperm will be ejected in flowback even before they have a chance to enter the cervix. Sperm cells enter the vagina, stimulate the female immune system. They are then selectively coated with immunogamma-globulin, IgG. Leukocytes from blood then phagocytise IgG-coated sperm cells. Once they enter the cervix, they must find their way through 10,000 cervical crypts. Their journey can be made even more difficult by the excretion of thick cervical mucus. On passing through the cervix, they must find their way into the uterus, into the correct oviduct, locate the female egg, and then attempt to penetrate its hard wall. So why is the female body making the job even more difficult when the successful reproduction of a species depend on the sperm cells finding and fertilising the female egg? Well, it seems the female body can also provide some help. The cervical mucus can be thick and entrap weaker and less able sperm. It can also be watery and guide the path of selected sperm. Cervical mucus also reduces the acidity of the vagina and thus makes it possible for more sperm to survive. Some cervical crypts provide preferential pathways for sperm, and contractions also assist the uptake of sperm into the uterus. Smooth uterine muscular contractions assist the passage of sperm. Something appears to signal the sperm, letting them know which oviduct they must enter to find the female egg. The uterine secretes a number of enzymes that are essential for capacitation. Capacitation is a process by which the hard wall of the female egg is broken down, making it possible for the sperm cell to penetrate the egg and to complete the task of fertilisation. This is only a brief overview of the myriad steps to the incredible complex reproductive process. The point we're making here, however, is that the female body is testing, guiding and helping the sperm and ensuring the success of the system. So how does all this relate to our claim that our consciousness is a God Gamete? We contend the parent species are not reproducing their bodies. The parent species are reproducing their souls, that rather than selecting for fitness and adaptability, they are selecting for strength of character. They retain bad and even people to test our ability and our desire to do good. We claim bad people act as their selective agent, the same way earthly species use overpopulation and survival of the fittest as selective agents. Without dark, there can be no light. If this is true, is there any historical evidence that our early ancestors perceived evil as an agent of God? Well, yes, there is. Many Christians believe in original sin, ancestral sin, or the fall of man. Some suggest we are sinful by nature as a result of Adam's rebellion against God in the Garden of Eden. And themes foretelling how the righteous must suffer are common in ancient theology. One could provide numerous examples. We will, however, for the sake of brevity, mention only two. In the Old Testament book of Job, verses 9 to 24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. The first of the four noble truths in Buddhism is dukkha, or suffering. And in more recent times we observe that there have been 100 million people die in wars since the start of the 20th century. Are we, like human reproductive cells, confronted with a lifetime of insurmountable hurdles? Or can we hope to get some help from our parent species? After all, if we're one of their gametes, then the success of their reproductive system will depend on our ability to overcome adversity. So let us pause here before we close this section. The first 6 points referred to what we know about our biology and our history. The seventh parallel, however, is a question mark. It looks at our human souls and where we stand at this point in time. Yes, there are very powerful secret societies and people in positions of influence who cause a lot of suffering. Do these people have an agenda for our future that will improve the lives of anyone, including themselves? It would seem not. So what is their purpose, if not to test our resolve to be good? In earlier times, people went to war merely because their governments told them to. In this century, however, we have those in power making ridiculous decisions. Their follies are captured on film and are in the public domain for all to see. So, having come this far, can we now hope to get help with our task? Maybe. There's already help out there for those who are looking. Confronting evil is not a lost cause. The parent species need the consciousness genes that code for strength of character. They need good people to survive. Eventually, bad people will be undermined and the good will prevail. Good will triumph over evil. Before closing this video, I'd like to acknowledge a friend. In 2001, I was living in Chiang Mai, northern Thailand, and I decided to take some time off work to write up the God Gametes thesis in a book. It was in Chiang Mai I met eminent novelist Kev Richardson, who offered to proof and edit my book. Kev has for many years now been my friend and mentor and the inspiration I've needed to get the job done. My book, God Gametes and the Planet of the Butterfly Queen, was self-published by Lulu Self-Publishing in 2003. I then thought, 10 years researching and writing, and I've finally finished. And I intended to get on with promoting my book and the God Gametes Theory. It seems, however, I found little time for promotion, and what spare time I had was being dedicated to researching and writing more books. The God Gametes Theory kept on giving and providing me with more supporting evidence. Lots more. In 2007, I wrote God Gametes 2, Dark DNA and Parallels Between Gender-Based Reproduction and Ancient Theology. In 2010, I wrote Germline of the Gods, God Gametes 3, and the Entanglement and Decay of Planet Earth. And in 2014, I completed God Gametes 4 and the Darwinian Fallacy. God Gametes 4 and the Darwinian Fallacy is my latest book and is probably the best place to start for those wanting to read more about the God Gametes Theory. Its first 3 chapters provide an overview of the concept. Chapters 4 and 5 are on Darwinism, and Chapter 6 is a revised Q&A on the God Gametes Theory. I have a website, www.robertjamison.com.au. Please note my name doesn't have an I and just a single S. My website has synopses of all works and a link to my Lulu Author Spotlight, where you can purchase my books in either print or as ebooks. My ebooks are also available from Amazon and iTunes. Kev Richardson also has a website. Here you can read synopses of his books and find links to his US and Canadian publishers. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this video presentation.